grow money, not muscle? What? Welcome to the Joyous Expansion Podcast. I'm your host, Brett Dupree, scouring the globe to bring you stories of courage, passion, and resilience. If I could sum up this podcast into one word, I would use empathy. Now let's get inspired. Welcome to episode 79 of the Joyous Expansion Podcast. I am your host once again, Brett Dupree. Today we talk to Nelson Toriano, who is a fitness instructor who helps fitness businesses make money and make their business a business. How fun is that? But first we talk about my life, because if I can't be vulnerable with what's going on in my life, how can I expect my guest to be? Today is July 21st, 2 days away from my sister's birthday, actually. Little tidbit about me and my sister. Basically, what's been happening in my life is, well, it's hard to say. As it's 2020, I'm getting a little sad of being stuck at home alone. I miss going out to things. I miss going to summer festivals. I'm missing all that. I'm being good for the most part. I probably should get out of my apartment more and do more things that I am able to do. I mean, I live next to a lake and I've yet to walk by it. I should probably do that sometime. Probably do this weekend. Just go out maybe late at night and just walk the lake. Now that I know that this virus doesn't really spread too much outside. Probably just to get a change of scenery and maybe just sit by the lake and have those ions of that water hit me and just enjoy being outside. Don't do that enough. Stuck in my apartment. But things are going good. I'm getting ahead in my podcast. I'm trying to really re-energize that part of me who wants to do something in my life and get back to my wide-eyed, doughy self of, yes, I can make great change in this world, so let's go for it. And really bring that up as things were starting to do that, and then this pandemic hit. I'm not going to say it's a blessing, because it's not, but I can look at that part of it as a blessing for me to show that even through going through that I can go forward. Because that is one thing I do believe in life, is that life is for the most part meaningless. I believe I talked about this before. But being the fact that it's meaningless, we are able to give it meaning. And I don't mean meaningless in that, oh my God, there's no point in life, but it's just, I don't believe that we are here to accomplish great things. I don't believe we are here to change the world, I guess. I don't really believe in soul contracts, but I like the idea of them. And because there's this old saying, if you believe in nothing, you fall for anything. But what if you believe in nothing and you fall for anything, and that anything is something that you can choose? You choose what you believe in, and if what you believe in is something that makes it so you can create your best life, well, let's do that. So I don't believe I was born here for some glorious purpose, but I can create that meaning for me so that I can just be here for a glorious purpose and create that meaning. Almost a reverse secret. Instead of like my intentions going out into the universe and creating my reality, I just create my reality, because there's only way to go through life in a meaningless world is for us to create meaning, if that makes sense. So I've been really stepping into that. I've been going through my tradition of listening to Jed McKenna's Spiritual Enlightenment. It is the darndest thing. It's something I like to listen to periodically, as it always invokes a lot of great thoughts. And thinking about it and writing in my book, The Church of Awesome Bible, going through those motions. Some days are hard to get up than others, but working on pushing through that and creating that awesome life that I know that I want to live, that I desire to live, that I'm going to make my God, which is my ideal self. And that's going to happen. This is shorter than usual, but I really don't have too much to say, which is fine. I don't have to say a lot. That brings us to my interview with Nelson. Nelson Toriano is the CEO of Coach Nelly Toriano, an education and career development company for personal trainers. He's dedicated his work to help fitness professionals sustain their career so that they can continue helping their clients be fit and healthy. His background includes financial hardship, physical and substance abuse, coming out of the closet, and plenty of other challenges. He now finds himself making a difference for others in the realm of entrepreneurship. And now, here's my interview with Nelson Toriano. Hello, Nelson, and welcome to my podcast.
Hey, thanks so much. I'm excited to be here.
Cool, I'm excited to have you. Can you give people an introduction to who you are?
Sure. I am the CEO of a financial and education company and a career development company dedicated for personal trainers. So I help personal trainers develop themselves into business owners. And I do that providing complete education in terms of entrepreneurship. You like my 6-second elevator pitch? I practiced it for a while.
It sounds like you have it down.
I do. I'm also an author. I'm an MBA, but really my dedication is to help personal trainers and fitness professionals develop themselves into legitimate CEOs. In the industry, there's limited education in terms of business. So a lot of fitness professionals will learn science, will learn how to sell and know how to market themselves. So if any of you listeners, you probably follow fitness professionals and fitness models on Instagram. That's a really common path. But behind the scenes, there isn't a whole lot of education in terms of accounting, finance, and law, and how to set up your actual business structure. That part is lacking unless you actually take business courses. My contribution back to the community that I love, the industry that I love, is trying to fill in the gap in that education by bringing everything that I learned in entrepreneurship and everything that I learned in business school and try and make that standardized and make it appeal to someone who thinks more in terms of fitness.
Have you always been into fitness?
I have. So I've been in the industry for almost 20 years. I started off teaching at 24-hour fitness, teaching group classes. Then I segued into personal training, but that was more of a weekend and more of an evening type of gig. I'm based in Silicon Valley. So down here in San Jose, it's just south of San Francisco. It's easy to fall into a career in tech. So technically I was working in tech for about a decade. And then one day I started soul searching and realizing, is sitting behind a desk, is this something I see myself for the next 30 or 40 years? So I entered this several years of soul searching and realized it wasn't my calling anymore. What really was my calling was giving back to the community, was being with people, was watching their journey through health and fitness, and their happiness in the gym always spilled over to happiness personally. I really found that more of a purpose for me. So I switched careers altogether. I do business. Obviously, I have my own business, but now my mission and my vision for the business itself is in the realms of personal training.
So it sounds like you help people take their fitness business and actually turn it into a business rather than a hobby.
Yes, I do. All the Instagram, what you see is on Instagram, that's social media, but I'm behind the scenes. I'm making sure that they're compliant and making sure their business actually grow. Yeah.
Generally speaking, people who teach people something generally went through something themselves. Can you talk about the struggle you had in starting your business at first?
Yeah, and when you meet, it's always interesting. When you meet another business owner, when you meet an entrepreneur, sometimes they will share with you the highlights and the accomplishments and what they do because we're so well rehearsed. And again, I've always been fascinated by people's stories behind the scenes. I have to be honest with listeners. If you enter into business ownership and entrepreneurship, it is a very lonely journey. And it is at times it can be very scary. You want to give up. I've wanted to give up so many times. Even though I have a master's of business administration, I knew that I had a passion for all these topics, actually branching off on my own and seeing my own dream come true. Again, it feels lonely because you are creating something from scratch. You're creating something that you're not used to. There really is no template. When you're an employee, when you're teaching in the gym, you follow these protocols. You go enter sales training and you have these colleagues and everyone is on your same level. But when you're branching it on your own and you have this sense of purpose, you're at a point of creation. One of the obstacles that I had to go through when I was unraveling who I am as a person was that battle of I'm not good enough. I had to deal with the imposter syndrome. I still deal with it. There's so many successful entrepreneurs. There's so many successful business owners. There's so many people who seem like they got their stuff together, and I'm just starting. When we talk about emotional intelligence, it's a constant practice to keep yourself motivated. I know that sounds trite, but going back into my past, so I'm the youngest of 3 in the Filipino-American community, and my older brother and my older sister are about 9 and 10 years older. And then there's my 2 parents. So growing up, I was always babied, but I was made fun of a lot. And so I still carry that with me. I'm always different. That conversation still sticks with me as an adult. Now, I came out of the closet back in 2003. So as a closeted gay child and a student in high school and even in college, that conversation in my psyche, I am different, has always stuck. And for many, many years, gosh, I'm 38 years old, I would say a good 3 decades, that conversation still resonates, where being different is bad. It's not admirable. It took a long journey to actually appreciate my self-worth, to shift my mindset that being different when it comes to business is technically called a unique selling point. And it's called a marketing position. It actually sells. It's actually a good thing. But for a very, very long time, I had to deal with again, imposter syndrome that I'm not good enough. I should just follow in my own path.
I was going to say we're about the same age. And one thing I remember growing up is the 80s weren't kind to gay people.
Yeah.
especially media. I know I'm very ashamed with how I acted as a kid towards that, but I just assume that it's a very lonely way of growing up, being able to hide yourself that way. Yeah,
you do. Now, going a little bit deeper, it really impacted me on the emotional level, on the visceral level of just being a human person. So I grew up I went to college at University of San Francisco, and between 1999 and about 2001, that was the peak of the rave scene. So if you were in that area, glow sticks were common and MDMA was common. At that time when I was really coming into my own skin, when I was coming of age, and I was dealing with that conversation in the back of my mind that being different is bad. Well, I fell into that. I fell into the party scene. So that drug was my panacea to make the pain, make the anguish, make the confusion go away. So I was battling with drugs for about a good 2 years. And I remember hitting rock bottom. I was lying on my back in Golden Gate Park, and I didn't know anybody there. I can't tell you, that was my rock bottom of feeling lonely, not just emotionally, but physically. I really didn't know anybody. On top of that, the conversation of being, I'm not good enough and I want to feel wanted and I want to feel appreciated and I want to feel valued and loved. I gravitated to a relationship, my very first relationship, which ended up being physically abusive because I met him through the party scene. So everything, I eventually left him after hitting that rock bottom. This journeys to sobriety, there isn't one particular thing that fixes everything. Sorry, listeners, there is no easy way out. It was a long process of trying everything that works and what worked for me. When I talk about success, getting myself sober and finding that everything kind of worked, things like forgiveness, things like going to therapy, things like focusing on school, and it was a long, long process. I use that template, I use that structure for getting myself out of a dark situation into entrepreneurship also. The journey can feel really lonely. There's a lot of ups and downs. There's a lot of tears. Sometimes there's a lot of times where you want to regress and give up, but you have to stay the course. I still reflect on myself personally, on that personal journey. This is how I got here. And you do have to acknowledge yourself. I do have to acknowledge myself that, I'm pretty proud. It was a dark moment.
Awesome. That is so cool that you're able to get yourself out of there. So you're getting yourself sober and going through that dark place. The lessons you learned there helped you through your bankruptcy?
Yes. So that's another story. So time passed. 2003, I graduated college and I moved back in with my parents. And then it was during that time when everyone was buying houses. And so my parents helped me get into a condo. And that was about 2005, I believe. And then I was working in tech. Obviously, it was my first job and things were going well. And then 2009 happened. So if you guys remember, that was the economic downturn. All of those conversations suddenly came up. Now it amplified, to be honest. Those conversations are now, you're a failure. You couldn't keep up. What did you do? You shouldn't have done this. You shouldn't have entered into this financial agreement and buy a house. What were you thinking? These were all conversations that I was telling myself. I filed bankruptcy and was discharged in 2012. I was laid off from my job. I was one of millions and millions of Americans. And it was another moment in my life where I felt really alone because everyone around me was still either living with their parents or somehow, what seemed like that they were still holding on to their properties, like they were living there and they seemed like they were doing fine. Going through the court system, hiring a lawyer, finding my financial statements, it was, again, really daunting because it was a brand new learning curve for me. I didn't understand what was going on, so I had to hire a lawyer. The interesting thing, though, actually, let me backtrack. At this time, I was in another job, and when all my coworkers and I were working, and then suddenly we had our lunch break, they would go out to lunch, they would go wherever they needed to go, and I would still be sitting in my cubicle, and I would lean forward on my keyboard, and I would just start. I was so amazingly stressed out, not because of the job, was because my life is falling apart. I have no money. I'm so house poor and I can't talk to anybody because no one's going through the same thing. Again, I felt now I'm in the presence of, I know these people, I'm working with these people, but I can't say anything. I never felt alone since I had my rock bottom moment at Golden Gate Park. Handling my bankruptcy, handling the court system, handling all the paperwork happened on the weekends, happened in the evenings. And then something really transformational happened. So when you file for bankruptcy, you have to attend these classes. They're really boring because they have to walk you through, this is what a credit card is, and this is how you should have managed it, and blah, blah, blah. These are basic concepts that I know. And then you have to attend these meetings, which felt like AA meetings, like everyone in the community went there. Now, in my area, so many people were filing bankruptcy and so many people were required to take this class. We usually had to meet in a community center. Well, there were so many people, they ended up renting out a whole church, and it was huge. And I remember walking in, and this is weird. I've been to the church before, but I've never seen this packed. There was like standing room only, and it was everybody at that moment in time was filing bankruptcy. And these meetings happened across the country several times a week for several years. So that's a lot of people. And I would look around and there would be senior citizens. There would be people who just retired. There would be new families. There would be pregnant moms. There would be children. And we were all going through the same financial struggle. We were all going through the same process. You could feel in the room everyone's tension, everyone's anxiety. But at the same moment, you could feel everyone's empathy. They're like, oh my God, you're going through it too. You're going through it too. And these are people who are like working professionals, just like me. When I started getting communication with people, I slowly started feeling that I wasn't alone anymore, which was very therapeutic. Very, very, I appreciate it. Finally, I got discharged. My lawyer wished me good luck with everything. And then it was such a relief, to be honest, to not be house poor. I'm dating someone who is wonderful, and I'm still living with him also. And he's been amazing and supportive. But it was one of those dark moments I have to look back and say, if that was the worst that life could have thrown at me, I'm doing fine. I'm okay. I'm still surviving and I'm still here. It sucks in the moment and it feels really scary. But it wasn't until I physically put myself in a situation when I actually tangibly could realize I'm not alone. That meant the world to me. That changed the course of everything. Now I can talk about it openly and objectively. Whenever you do feel alone, I know whenever I feel alone, the first thing I have to say is actually vocalize, I feel alone. Somehow the universe works and it delivers people to you that like, hey, and reassures you that like, you got this. I'm here for you. It's amazing how the universe works like that. I don't know.
Oh, no, I totally agree. I went through a bankruptcy as well, and just meeting a couple of friends opened up to me about it, and that all of a sudden made it easier to go through. I didn't feel like such a failure and the only person who's gone through this. So there's a lot of power in just recognizing the fact that really all our problems are not special.
Yeah.
There's someone out there who has that, and just learning about it. I mean, that's pretty much almost the point of the podcast. Is listening to struggling entrepreneurs or people even who just had a great idea and just moved forward and how they did it.
Yeah. So. And I think also it's battling that you should be a certain way. Your life should look like this. You shouldn't have foreclosed. You shouldn't had to have filed for Chapter 13 and all these shoulds and these expectations you don't realize you had, or even I should say this, I didn't know I had in my psyche that was putting myself down. Sometimes I just really need to be kind to myself and say like, I'm human and it's okay. Life doesn't have to look a certain way because someone else said so. It's your life. It's my life,
That makes perfect sense. So how did your bankruptcy fuel you in taking your business to the next level?
When I was sitting in the church, it was an emotional roller coaster just sitting in that 1 hour in the pew in the back and not talking. One of the emotions that I got really present to was anger. And it wasn't anger necessarily at the banks, but it was more anger that when I'm looking around and seeing people who are going through the same thing, had the same knowledge base as me, and were equally as screwed, this is wrong. It's unethical. Now I'm seeing people whose retirements literally just disappeared and they're scared. I'm watching this pregnant mom who is maybe 5 months into the pregnancy and she's scared. This is wrong. So for a long time, I didn't know how to channel this anger in me, ethics, this sitting in my heart. I just felt like an ethical man. I don't know. This was a brand new emotion. I didn't know how to process it. When time passed, and when I started going more into personal training, what I saw in the industry was a lot of personal trainers quit regularly. So if you guys don't work in fitness, there's a very high attrition rate. not only most businesses fail within the first 3 to 5 years, but about 80 to 90% of personal trainers burn out and quit within the first 2 years of their employment anywhere. It's an exhausting job. But most of my colleagues were my age or younger, and they were moving out of the Bay Area regularly. They just couldn't make the numbers work. The cost of living is too high. They're not getting enough clients. And a lot of them just quit. And these are people who I respect, I admire. And the same feeling of being angry about ethics came back. I would attribute the main reason why I stuck around and I was successful at personal training in an area where the cost of living is super high was because my background is in business. I just knew what to do behind the scenes and I would reinvest the money. We went to the soul searching stage yet again for about a year or two. And I realized that in the industry, they don't offer education. They offer sales training. They're really good at teaching personal trainers how to be salespeople, but they don't teach them how to be entrepreneurs. So I threw my hat in the ring, figuratively, and I did something that was very uncanny and uncharacteristic of many people. I said, I'll write a book. I'm going to start a business. Let me make a difference in this industry. In an industry. Usually people make a difference for another person or donate, but you know what? Let me shoot real big. I'm going to make a difference in the industry. So I created a company, registered my company, wrote a book, started my educational program. And my goal is to help personal trainers decrease the attrition rate. I don't want these talented people quitting on a regular basis because if there's not enough of us, we can't make a difference in terms of global health. In the obesity, it's bad enough. A lot of these schools are canceling a lot of physical fitness activities after school programs and sports. The United States is not on a great trajectory to be healthy. So yeah, I'm making a difference in this world. I use my bankruptcy as that fuel, that emotional fuel to say, this isn't right. And I think I have a solution to correct it. Let me take that back. I know I have a solution to correct it.
Yeah, powerful language.
Yeah.
One thing that stood out to me that you said is they teach personal trainers sales training instead of business training. What's exactly the difference?
Good question. If you're in business or even actually your employer in any type of role where you have to get clients, you end up learning the sales funnel. So here's social media, here's email marketing, here's all the different ways to get clients. And your income, no, let me say that back. Your revenue is the number of sessions that you sell times your rate. And the math ends up working and you get a lot of revenue and then you pay your taxes and then you get income. Their education stops there. Now, in reality, a lot of personal trainers, and actually in reality, in a lot of industries, people outgrow the role of the employee. They actually want to do something on their own. They just want to test the waters and see, hey, can I get clients on my own? Can I set my own rates? Can I set my own schedule? Their interest starts peaking in what it's like to be an entrepreneur, which you find purpose, you do find fulfillment, you find contribution, you find these intrinsic motivations that being an employee doesn't necessarily offer to a wide variety of people. But in order to be self-employed, there's a lot of more skills that you need to learn. You do need to learn how to manage your finances. You do need to learn how to set up your business correctly. You do need to learn how to make sure your business functions and is compliant with local regulations and things like that. That part of the equation is not readily accessible, and especially in the fitness industry. My goal is trying to make that more visible, more accessible. So there is sales and marketing. In reality, in terms of an entire organization, entire business, those are select functions of the business, not to be confused with the entire business.
Never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
So, what does it look like working with you?
So I have several options. Usually people just ask me random questions. I do have a book. With the book, you can take a self-study course that is available for a passing what we call continuation credits. Those credits can be applied for your certification as a personal trainer because you have to renew your certification every 3 years. I do have 2 educational programs. One is 4 sessions. And so that is one-on-one training with me. And I answer your questions and I teach you the basic fundamentals of business organization that offers limited support ongoing. And then my new course that's more intensive, I do select personal trainers who I work with. You really do have to be committed to opening your own business. And this is specifically designed for people who know they definitely want to be self-employed, but they will need to enter in an education program. Think of getting your MBA in a number of 8 sessions plus continuing coaching. I do develop a community group of supporters. Other entrepreneurs, other fitness owners do support each other as well. So that is not only giving you a community, that gives you one-on-one coaching with me, but that gives you more detailed information, specifically developing into investments, money allocation, law, everything to support your actual business plan.
So how does your book and your courses transform people?
There's 4 roles. And listeners, if you know who Robert Kiyosaki is, he's a very profound thought leader in the business world. Personal trainers tend to operate in 2 of the 4 quadrants. They're basically roles anyone can be in their life. One can be an employee, you're working for someone else. The second one is going to be self-employed, you're working for yourself. The third and the fourth one is where some personal trainers really, really, really want to be. And this is why I screen personal trainers if they want to work with me. One, they want to be business owners. They actually want to open up their own facility or open up their own online brand, but they hire people in order to do the work for them. It's a totally different structure. And then the fourth one that's most elusive is being an investor. How do you invest into another company? That's not necessarily fitness, but how do you reinvest your income into things like real estate or stocks? Or how do you what are the different strategies the wealthy people do to make their money grow? When I talk to some personal trainers, they generally want to know that. They want to know how their money grows that are beyond their basic checking and savings. And we talk about what we call assets. We talk about their net worth statement. These are the behaviors and these are the strategies of the wealthy. So my book goes into detail of how to explain all these very theoretical concepts and make them a little bit more tangible, but I explain them in fitness terms. I understand how to speak fitness. I understand the mindset. I understand the learning style of a fitness person, or kinesthetic, or tactile. But you're also talking about like Harvard business case studies that are really out there and really over the top that can go right over someone's head. So I try to take these more elusive concepts and explain them into a particular listening style. That's in my book. And when we go in detail, when I go into coaching, I'll walk you through, okay, this is how you actually go through the forms. This is how you actually go through the financial statements. This is the actual process for the trademarks and copyrights. So it's a little bit more hand-holding, and I think that type of coaching style is needed in the fitness world. There's a lot of coaches that will teach you how to do exercises, but very few coaches will actually teach you how to run a business.
What do you like best about your coaching practice?
Oh, gosh. I think this goes for any type of teacher, any type of coach, or any type of anyone who gives a contribution is watching the student get excited, watching them grow, that fulfillment, watching them get that eureka moment, that aha moment, like, oh my gosh, this makes sense. It really speaks to me in that sense of contribution. It's so fulfilling. I love it. And again, going back to that fear, being an entrepreneur is scary, but you want to fulfill on a dream. You want to make a contribution into the world. And when I see someone say, I can do it, I'm like, yeah, you can. I remember going through that and I didn't learn that feeling saying that I can do it. I didn't learn that until later in life. So if I can give that back to people who are emotionally probably going through the same thing and not being able to vocalize it for whatever reason, that gets me up in the morning. That reminds me why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Awesome. Do you have any fun success stories to share?
It's recent. I was working. Oh, it's so funny now that we're on a podcast. So I was working with another fitness influencer and he's doing great in sales. Oh my gosh. He's on TikTok. He's on social media everywhere. Behind the scenes, he was sharing with me his dreams and he wants to launch his own podcast too. And he wants to put his name on product. And he was asking me a bunch of questions and I was walking through, okay, this is how you register a limited liability corporation. He was amazed that now he had to confide in me that he's like, even though I'm selling a lot and even though on Instagram I'm this influencer, I'm so scared that I could lose all of this. And he was confiding with me that, a lot of the fitness people that you see on social media are the same way. They're doing great. They seem like they're killing it. But when you get to talk to them and you actually tell them, okay, this is the business structure, now they feel a little bit more confident. So he's on the go of registering his business, setting his trademark. He's super excited that now he's confident that he's found the right systems in order to develop his own podcast. His income obviously income increased because he and I put the right systems in place for accounting, finance, and law. So yeah, it's amazing when you have a good foundation of your business to stand on. Everything, not only monetarily, but emotionally and intrinsically, viscerally, it just explodes. I love that. That to me is success. That to me is purpose.
Awesome. So we're coming to the end of our time together. One thing I like to ask my guests is to do a 1 minute of motivation. You can think of this as if you have a time machine and you're going back to your 8-year-old self and you want to convey everything you need to live a happy and joy-filled life. But unfortunately, you only have a minute until you're plopped back into the future. Or you can think of it as taking your entire life's message and condensing it down to a minute.
Yeah.
So you ready?
Yeah.
Let's go.
All right. You are going to be told you are different. Everyone's going to tell you being different is you should hesitate. You should follow the norms. And if that message resonates with you and you accept it, it will be disheartening. It's a very slippery slope into shame and to being quiet. I learned that being different can make you a lot of money. I learned that being different is very lucrative. It is a source of pride. It's a source of individualism. It's a source of standing out in the market. So if you take being different as bad, translate it into the business world, that's technically called a unique selling point and a market position. It's a competitive advantage. Look at the context of being different. I highly suggest you choose the more empowering context.
Thank you so much for being on my podcast. I really enjoyed listening to your story of what it's like to grow up feeling alone and listening to different people's perspectives of how they live their lives. So living in a way as a closeted gay man and then getting into the scene of drugs and partying and finally stepping out of that, becoming sober. So utilizing those skills to start building your own business, but then being smacked in the face with bankruptcy as someone who went through it themselves, that feeling of almost losing your self-worth, but then bouncing back from that and thus even helping other people, utilizing that as a fire to really help people so they don't have to go through something like that by not only taking what they're doing, but expanding on it so that they don't just think of themselves as someone who just brings in revenue and sales, but to being a whole business is very helpful for allowing people to become stable in their personal training business. Thank you so much for being on my podcast, and thank you so much for what you contribute to this world.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
May your day be special. There you have it, folks. That was my interview with Nelson. I very much enjoyed his interview. It's always good. Someone who recognizes that it's our differences that are our strength. The thing that makes you unique is the thing that makes you special. I remember a lot when I was a child thinking how I wanted to fit in. I mean, that's what we want to do as children, is fit in. And some part of growing up is recognizing the fact that we're not always going to fit in and that we shouldn't always fit in because sometimes it's better to go against the crowd. That old saying, if your friends were jump off the Golden Gate Bridge, would you? But of course, we never learn. Wisdom is wasted on the young, or how that saying goes. But yeah, one thing, it did change my life, learning about other people's problems. And again, that's one of the things I liked about when I want to do this podcast, is having people tell their stories so other people can listen and think to themselves, oh, I went through that, or I'm going through something similar. As I believe I mentioned before, but I'll mention again, when I was going through my bankruptcy, even though I knew I couldn't be the only person in the world going through this, but I felt so alone, and living alone had a big part of it. And I lost my job. I got fired. I got laid off and then got fired, but it wasn't really fired. I mean, it was fired. And it was the first time I was ever fired, honestly. But I just had so much anxiety about money because I had way too much debt that I could ever pay. And a good amount of my paycheck just went to debt that was not getting any smaller, and I was just feeling terrible. And I was looking, and every time you're making credit card payments, what you're really making is a payment to your bad decision, spending more money than you have, unless you have a specific plan to, like buying a car or a house or something along those lines. It's throwing money down the toilet. It's not that big a difference. And so going through that and then having to finally say, you know what, I can't do this. I can't pay this off. There's just no way. And making that decision to declare bankruptcy and feeling like a complete loser. At least that's what I felt like. And I felt like I was the only person. And I went to a cacao ceremony with my friend Liz, which I taught, if you listen to Liz Off Open, I think I talked to her about that. But one thing that she talked to me about was her bankruptcy and how she was able to get through it, and made me feel better, because that's what empathy does. She was where I was, and she just gave me encouragement, talked to a lot of people who go through this, and that it's a time to, rebuild and make things better, and that I'll get through it and everything will be fine. And just listening to someone tell their story. And so that's always appreciate people like Nelson who come in here and not just talk about the good parts of their life, about all the success that they have, but they talk about those things that happened, the drug issues, the feeling like you're different and how that's a bad thing, going through bankruptcy. I really respect people who do that, so I'm really grateful for Nelson to come on my show and share that part of him. And if his story touched you and you know somebody who is a fitness instructor or are a personal trainer, and you want to get in touch with him, you can go to CoachNellyTorino.com and /podcast. There you'll find his 5 free financial tips and also a link to his book, For the Fit But Poor Personal Trainer, a guide on how to train money, not muscle, to grow. Coach Nelly Toriano, this will all be in the description, is also his Instagram handle and his Facebook. And then you'll find him on Twitter at Nelson E. Toronto. And there we have it, folks. That is episode 79. Woo! It is hot in here, and I have to turn all my fans off to do this podcast part of my podcast, so I can't wait to be done. So I'll keep this as quick as possible. I love you. You can like, subscribe, leave a review anywhere. That I'd greatly appreciate it. Stars are great. Share with friends. If you can email me at any reason for BRE2Ts, DUPR2Es at joyousexpansion.com. Check out joyousexpansion.com for my information. More episodes of pod.joyousexpansion.com. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn at Joyous Expansion. You can find me on Facebook at Increase Your Joy because I suck at SEO. So thank you so much for listening to my podcast. Thank you so much for spending time with me and my guests and learning and loving and all that fun jazz. I am Brett Dupree, champion of the Authentic Joy Cap. Whew, hot. Catalyst of Transformation of the Church of Awesome and Joyous Expansion Life Coach, wishing you once again to be loved, to be joy, to be awesome. Now play that jingle.
JoyousExpansion.com. JoyousExpansion.com. Come and say hello to Brett Dupree. He is an inspirational life coach. Good for you and good for me. He turned my life from grey to blue. I'm sure he'll do the same for you. Get in touch and you'll see your life will change dramatically. JoyousExpansion.com. JoyousExpansion.com. Yeah.